Good morning, biology. Happy Monday. Today we're going to be starting a conversation about the interesting world of community ecology. We just talked about population ecology. Now we're going to talk about community ecology. A little review for you guys. Levels of ecology are individual, population, community, ecosystem, and then biosphere. Populations are a large number of interacting individuals, and communities are a large number of interacting populations. These populations all interact with each other, making a very complex web of interactions. Some interactions are positive, like on the right there, that bee pollinating a flower and the bee gets food. Some are negative, like this osprey eating a fish. Predation. This is the interaction where an animal of one species, the predator, eats all or part of an individual from another species, the prey. This is a very strong interacting force. It determines how big populations are. If you have lots of predators, you won't have lots of prey. And if you have lots of prey, then you will probably get a little more predators as they start to breed and because they have a constant food supply. Carnivores, these are predators of animals, and herbivores are predators of plants. Yes, plants are prey, so things that hunt them and eat all or part of them are predators. Many animals can be both predator and prey. This rabbit on the right hand side getting chased down by this cheetah here, he is a predator to food, he's a predator to plants, but he is a prey to the cheetah. Predator adaptations. Natural selection favors the evolution of adaptations for finding, capturing, and consuming prey. These are things that a predator needs to do. So some examples are the sticky webs of spiders, a cheetah's speed, or teeth that are designed for cutting and ripping. A predator's survival relies on its ability to catch food. If you're a bad predator, you probably won't last very long. Adaptations in prey. They're the opposite of predators. Their adaptations are to escape, to hide, or use chemicals for protection. A common strategy is mimicry, where one species closely resembles another species. In Batesian mimicry, you have a harmless species resembling a harmful one. An example, the king snake on the right there is colored just like the coral snake. His colors are alternating. They're different, but to a predator, that's enough to say, okay, I won't eat this king snake because maybe he's venomous. Mullerian mimicry, on the other hand, is two dangerous / distasteful species that look very similar. So, these bees and wasps on the right there, they're all using that black and white striped coloration. So predators kind of get trained to avoid those color schemes. They know they've eaten one bee, probably the rest of them are toxic too. Competition. Interspecific competition. This is a type of interaction where two or more species use the same limited resource. An example is lion and hyenas both eat zebras. Another example here is these wildebeest and zebra on the right in the picture. They're both competing for that water there, that very limited pool of water. And you can see there's a large herd of wildebeest in the back. If two populations compete, they may have a reduced number of both species. If there's not enough water to feed everyone, whoever's best at drinking water will probably have a higher number of individuals in their species. Competitive exclusion. George F. Gause. He's one of the first scientists to study competition in the lab. He used two species of paramecium, Paramecium Aurelia and Paramecium caudatum. When grown separately, both of them were very successful. They both thrived. They had a large number. When grown together, P. caudatum died out. This is competitive exclusion, that one species is better at using a resource and excludes another species. That caudatum was not allowed to use the food supply, and so they all died out. Competitive exclusion in barnacles. Joseph Connell, he studied barnacles in Scotland, and this is a documented competition in the wild. He studied Semibalanus balonides and Caudatum stellatus. These are both species of barnacles growing on the Scottish coast. They live in the intertidal zone, an area that is exposed during low tide. This is the area of the beach where the water if the water in between where it is at high tide and where it is at low tide, that's the intertidal zone. So, his findings from this, he found that Caudatum, let me get my pointer here, lived much higher on the rocks than Semibalanus. This blue one is Semibalanus. But when you put them in an area where there was no Semibalanus, Caudatum could live in this whole area. could grow in this whole intertidal zone. But when it was found with Semibalanus, Semibalanus pushed it to this higher area. Semibalanus doesn't do very well. It can't exist very dry. So to be up here where there's not a lot of water most of the time, it doesn't do well, where Caudatum still can. Reduced niche size. We talked about niche. We talked about it's a role that species plays in its environment. It can vary due to interactions with other species. Fundamental niche. This is the range a species can potentially tolerate. So for Caudatum, its fundamental niche is in between low tide and high tide. But its realized niche, this is the part it actually uses, is this tiny little sliver of it that's maybe 1/3 of its fundamental niche. Semibalanus, on the other hand, this is its fundamental niche. It can't live past this point, and it can't live below there. So it's using its whole fundamental niche, where Caudatum is just in this tiny little niche up here. Character displacement. This is the evolution of differences in a characteristic due to competition. Example, the Galapagos finches. Different beak size allowed for birds to eat different seeds. They're no longer fighting for the same resource, less competition. These guys here could probably eat smaller seeds, where these guys here could crack larger nuts. So they're using different food sources. There's no longer any competition. Resource partitioning. This is a species coexist by using a specific part of a resource. Insect larvae and adults feed on different things, reducing their competition. An example is birds search many different parts of a tree for the same bugs. They also, in this example, all these birds are using a different part of this lake ecosystem. The plover here is hunting insects and small invertebrates, while the flamingos is feeding on crustaceans, vegetable matter, and other things using their powerful tongues and beaks. They're using different resources, so they're not competing. This allows you to have 5 different bird species living in the same area. Symbiosis. This is close, long-term relationship between 2 organisms. There's 3 main types. There's parasitism, commensalism, and mutualism. Parasitism, one organism, the host, is harmed. The other organism, the parasite, benefits. Does not result in immediate death for the host. Parasites like to feed on their hosts for a long time. Makes a lot more sense for a tick if it can land on you, feed on you, get full of blood, fall off, and then find another host later on versus killing you, just allowing you to go and get fed on by more ticks. Different types of parasites. You have ectoparasites. These live on the outside of the host. Example are fleas, ticks, and this leech on the right is an example. And then you have endoparasites that live inside of the host. And over there I have tapeworms as the example, but these are actually some nematodes here over on the right. Parasites have specialized anatomy and physiology for a parasitic lifestyle. Not any organism can be a parasite. They have to have specific adaptations. They can have a very strong negative impact on a host. Hosts can have some defense against parasites, much like prey have defenses against predators. Hosts have defenses such as skin is a layer between you and a parasite. Your tears keep your eyes clean. Saliva keeps your mouth clean. Mucus keeps your nose clean. And immune cells. So if a parasite does make it inside of you, your immune system still can try to fight it off. You'll get a fever, maybe create conditions that will kill the parasite. Mutualism. This is a relationship where 2 species derive some benefit from each other. Some are so close that species cannot survive without each other, like bees and flowers, for example. They're very close. They both have specific, some flowers have openings that only certain species of bees can enter, and so if they don't have that bee around, they can't produce their young. An example I use here is acacia plants and ants on the right. The acacia has holes and creates living spaces for these ants, and in return the ants protect it from predators. Both of them are benefiting. Pollination, we talked about, is a mutualistic relationship. Bees, butterflies, bats, bees, beetles, and birds are called pollinators because they carry pollen between plants. The plant provides food, usually as nectar. In exchange, the animal carries the pollen to other flowers. Commensalism. This is an interaction where one species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor helped. An example are cattle, egrets, and buffalo. The cattle egrets benefit from the buffalo. They feed on small animals such as insects and lizards. And the buffalo spook out of hiding when they come to water. They also eat ectoparasites off of buffaloes. But for the most part, the buffalo isn't adversely or positively affected. Another example over here is these lampreys hanging onto this ray. The ray is not harmed, but these lampreys are allowed to travel at a speed that they normally could not. Your review is 20.1 review. It's on page 404. It's questions 1 through 5. I've done the liberty of giving you number 1 here. List the 5 major kinds of species interactions. They are predation, competition, parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Have a good Monday.